Okay, so now I pick up another interesting aspect, and which comes to us and which strikes us strongly when we read any Purana. Because if you see any Purana, if I can see, I often see them as sort of case studies where we see various stories of various people behaving in a certain way, and that behavior leads to a certain outcome. Yeah, so some of the stories in the Purana throw up a sort of an interesting confusion. So when we read the Tripurasura Samhara, we see that Shiva is being approached to get rid of the Asura who inhabit the Tripura. But when you read actually the Purana, it says that these sort of Asura are actually the Bhakta of Shiva, and they are seemingly just and reasonable. If this is so, if they are sort of Bhakta of Shiva, why is it that they are being killed by Shiva? And even if one reads about how Mahishasura or even Ravana ruled their own sort of their own kingdoms, they seem sort of just reasonable to their own people. So they seem to be taking care of all the praja working under them. So if they're sort of, should we see them as sort of decent souls? And if that is so, then why are they being killed? Yeah? And it's this sort of a question which brings me to this particular slide, which is that extreme manifestation of any guna is problematic and not aligned to Satya. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, let me just show this. So you have three gunas, which is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Okay, and you have the Parama. So if you kind of take the sun and how the sun gets reflected on the sort of water body, for a Sattvic person, reflection is clear. For a Rajasic, it is distorted, and for the Tamasic, it is sort of blurred. Yeah, so Sattva guna enables sort of Anubhava in a pure form, it and therefore it becomes an enabler for Arun Swarupa. Whereas a Rajoguna, leads to Sukha and Dukha. These are the sort of two dualities which are experienced by one who is Rajasic excessively. And for the Tamasic, they are confused because their drishti is sort of blurred. Okay. Now the point is, any extreme manifestation of the guna is problematic and not aligned to Satya. So, if one knows the story of Kartavirarjuna, he was a king who ruled for the benefit of all his people. But there was a problem that he wanted to do all the help himself only. Yeah, he did not want anyone else to do the good deeds of helping others. Very strange. And when normal behavior of people in that Rajya is sort of curtailed, when normal expressions of the people is curtailed, even if everyone is getting food and water, because their freedoms are curtailed, it means, and what does curtailing of freedom mean? Curtailing of freedom means that the devatas present within everybody are not able to express themselves. That's what curtailing of freedom means, right? And people are not free to perform the karma of their choice. Devata and karma are linked. When I say devatas are not able to express themselves, it means people are not free to do the karma which is aligned to their own persona. So therefore, this is like akin to peace in some of the sort of countries we see in the modern world also, where there is a lot of external visible prosperity, yeah, but inside the people feel suffocated. Yeah, if this is understood, now the idea that extreme manifestation of any guna is problematic, what happens? And if one even before I show one more aspect, which is the core of the slide, even if one reads Devi Mahatmyam, we see that Devi first does the sort of, she kills Chanda and Munda, which is Tamoguna Pradhana. She then kills Mahishasura, which is Rajoguna Pradhana. But guess what? She even kills, and I'm forgetting the name, she kills those Asuras also who are effectively to be seen as Sattva Pradhana. Why? Because they were extreme manifestations of a certain guna only, creating its own problem. So, how does one see the extreme manifestation of a certain guna playing itself out? So, if one is excessively tamasic oriented, because as we discussed earlier, tamas by its own is not a problem. Any tamasic aligned person who's doing dharmic karma will attain to the uttamagoti. So, there's no problem. But extreme tamas, it leads to blind loyalty to oneself or one's own kula jati or religion. Yeah, so that's the excessive. That's the conduct of one who's excessively tamasic. Whereas in the Rajasic, the loyalty, blind loyalty is still there, but it's to one's own self, one's wealth, fame, and power. Those are the sort of attraction factors. Whereas a Sattvic, an extreme Sattvic, ends up being having blind loyalty to one's own ideology. And we have many ideological freaks in today's world also, right? So one can see them as well meaning, but it's excessive and it becomes blind, like the Karta Veer Arjuna episode in the Purana. A tamasic, extreme tamasic will value others for one's own survival. मुझे जो मिल रहा है बस उसी के लिए मैं दूसरों को वैल्यू दूंगा, अदरवाइज अदर्स डोंट होल्ड एनी वैल्यू to me. Rajas, because it's all about classification, separation, right? That's what Rajas does. So these people who are excessively Rajasic oriented will classify people as per wealth and fame, whilst the former one values others from a survival perspective. Here, the valuation is as per wealth and fame. Whereas a Sattvic person is excessively judgmental. Excessive Sattvic person is excessively judgmental, and that leads to obviously its own problems. Tamasic person, extreme tamas, they live off the efforts of others, or in fact pull down the others. So you have people who are pulling down the others for no reason. Yeah, it's confusion leading to improper conduct. Rajasic snatch from the others. So Ravana is Rajas oriented, and therefore the idea of snatching women from other kingdoms or wealth from Kubera, his own brother, all of those conducts were done by Ravana because he's excessively Rajasic oriented. They in fact even insult the weak. Yeah, in their opinion, they have a certain view of who weak are, and they will not have any problems insulting such people. Here there is Sattvic Ahankara, and one of the most difficult Ahankara to get rid of is Sattvic Ahankara. And here the Sattvic Ahankara makes them take on to, and I've written here, povertarian outlook or excessive show of simplicity, excessive alignment to minimalism, all of that excessive display of one simplicity is what an excessive, a fanatic Sattvic person can be stated to be aligned to. A tamasic, unexplained hatred, anger, jealousy, excessive rajas, hate, anger for others who have more. So किसी को मेरे से ज़्यादा है, भला उसकी कमीज़ मेरी कमीज़ से सफ़ेद कैसी, right? So that's excessive rajas. And here hate, anger is covered up or even justified. Hate, anger sort of is covered up. One hides these things, but actually speaking, you're supposed to show anger in certain situations, but they hide it because they think that anger towards adharma is also probably problematic. So confusion of mind for one who is excessively sattvic also. A tamas resorts to hinsa if the needs are not met. Here rajas resorts to hinsa to display power. That is the purpose of hinsa. Here the sattvic person may display excessive karuna towards undeserving also, and frankly here also hinsa can be done for somebody who's not aligned to their ideology. So I have not put it here, but hinsa is possible even by an excessive sattvic person because of blind loyalty to ideology. Anybody who does not follow one's own ideology, people may sort of justify hinsa also in those sort of situations. Absence of kritagnyata for an excessive tamasic person, even though they are sort of living as parasites of the others. Here I will have gratitude or kritagnyata till the time I get something. Once I stop getting something, one will abandon, including probably one's own parents. Yeah. Here there is stupidity or naivete in display of gratitude. They show gratitude even towards undeserving. So similar to what I had shown as karuna also towards undeserving. Here display of gratitude is also towards undeserving to kind of make the goody goody statements which some of the wokes in the modern era do. Yeah. So we can therefore see the template of an excessive tamasic person as a rakshasa, excessive rajas as a asura template, and here I would call the excessive sattvic person as a Bauddha. And mind you, this is not the Bauddha who is following the Buddha, because Buddha is fantastic, and those aligned with Buddhism is not the point that is made here. Here we are referring to those who are aligned to Buddhi. Buddhi, as you know, is a product of Prakriti, and therefore one who is excessively Bauddhic, or what is called in the modern world as intellectual. Excessive intellectualism is also a problem, and such a person can be called as an excessive sattvic person. So this is the sort of extreme guna tilt, which is also problematic, which people in dharma should be aware of, and therefore make sure that their guna are also used in a balanced way for living what is called as a dharmic life. Okay. And now, what is the visible variety? And this is an experimental thought idea that I kind of put here, that how does one see Hindus? So, who's a Hindu? If there's a question that is asked, uh, typically, and that is what modern world also does, that those who are born of Hindu parents are Hindus. Yeah, so it's simple in the way it is kind of perceived. Equally, one may argue that those who follow the Shastra, are the sort of Hindus. That's one sort of an additional definition one can make. But let's take a more simpler definition, that those who call themselves as Hindus in the forms, for whatever reason they write, because they are born in a so-called Hindu family. So if these are the people that we see as Hindus displaying their sort of behaviors, what is the sort of a visible variety in terms of how we can sort of understand them? So on the one side you have Prakriti, yeah, song, dance, food, clothes, house, security, all of those are the aspects of Prakriti. And you have Satchitananda Swarupa, which is the Paramatma Sthiti. So these are the sort of two binaries within which everybody can be sort of clubbed into. So on the first template is that of what I call as a Rakshasa template, and this person I refer to as Swapidat, because they are in Pida and they also give others Pida. And why do I say that? Because these people, the people who sort of are being classified as a swapidat, under the swapidat bucket, they are, for them Prakriti alone matters. So food, dance, song, that's all that they matters to them. If they get it, they are extremely happy. If they don't get it, they are in pida. And when they are in pida, they give others pida also, to either, if they don't have it, then they will snatch from others, etc. Right? So they will therefore be seen as a swapidat sort of a category. And here, because their focus is prakriti only, we often see people make statements like the Shastra Karma is all superstition, etc. Because this idea does not sort of appeal to them at all. And they are farthest away from this idea of Sachidananda Swarupa. Yeah. And therefore, I call them as Swapidat. Then we have the so-called, we call them as liberals in today's world. They are Brahmit. And why do I say this particular thing is that the people in this category have exposure to everything in the universe, and they have lots of information. They have the capability. They will call themselves rational, etc. But again, guess what? Their measure of success in life is again Prakriti only. And because their measure of success is prakriti, and but they have read a lot, they keep getting confused between sometimes taking for this or sometimes taking for this side. And this confusion is what keeps them brahmit or confused. And this is the asura template. And here some of the sort of templates, some of the statements we can hear people make is that, oh, shastra karma is uninformed or wasted, again because they are quite far away from this, and they are closer to prakriti in their view of what is the right success in life, so to speak. They also would say that the shastra karma is uninformed, wasted, and stuff like that. But interestingly, these are the also people who will say, I'm spiritual but not religious. Okay, so that nonsense phrase that is used, I'm spiritual but not religious, it's the brahmit who kind of make that particular statement. The third category is what I refer to as the karmi. Interestingly, for them, they are bound to the shastra, so they go to temples. They will probably do nitya karma. They will do all these sort of things which are typically done by what we call as religious people. But guess what? Even they are within the pale of Prakriti, because even for them, if their temple visits are to make sure that they have good clothing, food, and shelter, their Nitya Karma is to also make sure that everybody in their family is happy. That's all that their sort of scope of vision is. So their success or failure also is driven by the Prakriti itself, and which is why I call them as Karmi. They would also be referred, they may also be referred to as asura, which means these two, there is no difference really. In modern world, we often call such people as religious people, and bulk of the fights between the so-called liberals on one side or the rationalists on one side and the religious on the other side, both of them interestingly are bound to prakriti only. So, which is why it's the fight between two who are more or less similar in their orientation of what they believe is success or not success in life. Though one may say that Shastra Kalma alone matters, and the other may say that, I'm spiritual but not religious. Both of them are sort of messed up creatures only from a dharmic drishti. Then we come to the sadhaka. Now, sadhaka has sort of crossed this line. For them, what they see as success is not this. This is more like an ingredient to help them assist into their life, but their goal is Sachidananda Sthiti. So here they are actually working on deepening the Shastra karma, which a karmi does, but they kind of mix it with jnana, in the sense that the karma is done for the jnana purpose, for attaining the jnana sthiti, and that is their goal. And such a people can be referred to as a deva. Finally, we have the Jnani. Such ones are immersed in Shastra. They are, however, immersed more in the Upasana and the Jnana Yoga aspect. Yeah, here the Sadhaka can be seen as, the Karma Yoga aspect, whereas all these are the Karmis only. Yeah, they are Karma and Dharma and Dukkha and Sukha binaries is what they are sort of continue their life into. As we saw, the sort of Dharma, Sanskara, Karma cycle, that circle applies to these. Whereas here, the Deva and the Jnani template, here the liking is oriented towards the Sachidananda Swarupa, and therefore, they are of a different category. So they cannot be religious also. They are the true Sanatanis in that sense. Okay, and one may sort of trace the sort of entire flow in this particular way, in the sense that one may probably start here but slowly make a progress into this path and eventually go towards this goal. That's how Shastras kind of view the sort of journey for every person. Now again, one needs to be slightly careful here, because one may use this to bucket others into these categories and therefore derive some sort of superiority complex. So I want to make that point very clear, that this slide is given not to put others into these buckets, though we may probably do it because of our own nature. The idea is to see these templates, to see the distinctions in terms of how they can play out, and therefore see what makes sense for us, and then accordingly chart out our own path, so to speak. Yeah, one thing one needs to know is, again, it's not that a person who is Brahmit will do Brahmit karma only, or a person who is a sadhaka will do sadhaka karma only, because we do various karmas. So I may do 100 karmas a day. One karma may be that of a jnani karma, maybe 10 maybe of a sadhaka karma, many of them 50 or 60 maybe in the Brahmit zone. I may do some nitya karma, so I have 10 or 15 here, and I can also do swapidat karma. And why this is so is because none of us are sort of evolved and refined in a complete way, right? So we do all kinds of karma throughout our life, throughout the day actually. But at the end of the day, one needs to reflect, okay, how many types of karma I have done today, and each karma under which bucket does it fit. And if predominantly I realize bulk of my karma today is of the Brahmit type, then maybe I should kind of take on to the next level, which is slightly better than the Brahmit zone, because at least I'm doing some sort of Nitya Karma, visiting, the Tirtha Kshetra, etc. And as I kind of progress into this, then I can take it further towards Jnana Sthiti and attain the Sachidananda Swarupa. So the idea is for self-evaluation. That is why it's sort of put here, is a point I would sort of emphasize again. Yeah. So this zone, which is the Prakriti zone, is a zone of karma and facts. So the people here will always talk of this is fact, and therefore this is true. I can see. So Peter will say, I can see a house, so it makes sense for me to, attain for this. Rather, sort of endeavor to work for this, rather than some ambiguous thing which I can't even see properly, right? So this is the zone of facts, and whatever facts are conveyed to the Indriya, that is the focus of those who are on this particular, so the Asura and the Rakshasa templates. But the zone on the left hand side is the zone of Satya, and but even facts are aligned to Satya. So those facts which are aligned to Satya, if a house is required for, making sure that my family lives well, so effectively it's an act for dharma, and therefore it facts aligned with Satya, and people who do karma of the Jnani and Sadhaka type, they are on the zone of Satya. Okay, and there is another sort of thing that is conveyed in the Shastras, pavarga. Pa, as you know, in Sanskrita, in the Devanagari thing is pa, fa, ba, ba, ma. These are sort of five, aksharas in that particular table. And pa stands for papa and punya. Fa stands for phala. Ba stands for bandha, which is karma bandhana, which I referred to earlier. Bha is bhaya, yeah, and pa for ba ba ma is marana, which is uh, the death itself. Now, people in the zone of the asura and rakshasa prakrita zone, they will be glued to pavarga. All the five aspects conveyed in the pavarga is what they are sort of glued to, and that circle of life, death will sort of continue. But those who are able to cross this rekha and come to the jnana side, then they are on their path for the apavarga path, which is the moksha sthiti. So apavarga is equivalent to moksha, and pavarga means one is glued to prakriti. Okay. So now, again, if this is clear enough, this slide should help reinforce what I talked about earlier in a more clearer form. So those who are prakritic in their orientation, they will be attracted to attain what is called as Ashta Aishwarya. So they will prefer to have dasa, they will want to have brityu, they will want to have a lot of bandhus around them who are sort of aligned to them, they will want to have sutu, knowledge of words, vastu vahana dhanya and dhana. So if one gets all of these, those with prakrita orientation will say, I have attained a successful life. Whereas what is joy, and for a karmi or a charvaka, which is the seeking of ashta aishwarya, is not a joy for one who is a sadhaka. The tilt of a sadhaka tends to be different. The joy which a sadhaka experiences tends to be of a different type altogether. So, what is the order? So, what is the siddhi for a sadhaka? The order of the siddhi for somebody who does japa, kriya, who chants mantra, who lives what is what can be termed as a sadhaka way of life. First stage, they will get rasollasa, which means the chanting of a mantra or japa or reading the Purana, etc., it gives them an anubhava of rasa by connecting with the bhava of such a japa or mantra. So that is the rasa, anubhuti that they experience by virtue of connecting with these particular aspects. Next, they will attain what is called as dvandvaihi anivibhutam, which means the anubhuti of sukha and dukha stops for them because they are in this particular apavarga zone. Adhamottama abhava, which means the ideas that something is good or something is bad or something is less or something is more, these sorts of distinctions that jivas normally make, such distinctions stop significantly for those who are in the apavarga side. Then Kanti Bala Vishokam. So one acquires Kanti in one's Sharira. So you have Gyanis, when we approach them, we see that there is some sort of a Kanti or energy coming out of their bodies, though they seem to be normally there in front of us. Yeah. And apart from Kanti, they seem to have a lot of Bala. An unknown form of Ananda is always present. Vishoka Sthiti means they don't have Shoka. That thing of getting into a depression, that stays away from people of this side. Okay. The next is ability to do tapa and dhyana without any distraction for a long time. They are able to do. This is siddhi for a sadhaka. Okay. Next, such a person can move about anywhere and he faces no obstacles. So the person can go to her, wherever they go to, these things seem to be happening smoothly for them, which also means that it does not mean that there are no obstacles, but those obstacles cease to have an impact in their own mind. That is what is siddhi for a sadhaka. And last, wherever such a person is situated, okay, the person is sthira without any inconvenience. And when sort of one is connected with her at all times, location ceases to matter. And Prahlad is supposed to have lived in such a siddhi. So if you kind of see slowly from 1 to 5, such a person is moving from a loka to a Paramatma sthiti. Because as I said here, location ceases to matter. Location ceases to matter means what? It means they are readying themselves to be in that sthiti wherever they are. And moksha sthiti is also that itself, which is wherever a person is, the person is Sachidananda sthiti. Therefore, again and again, I keep making this point that Sanatana Dharma is not a religion, because religion seeks loka. They seek a swarga or a naraka, or avoid naraka, because swarga is good because they get some things there. Naraka is something because is bad because they have bad experiences. Again, the mindset is restricted to a loka, and in loka people may need dasa, vastu, and all these sorts of material aspects, whereas Sanatani is oriented towards attaining a Paramatma sthiti, and that is why it is not a religion, it is beyond religion. Because the nature of Ananda that a sadhaka seeks in Dharma is of a location independent kind. That's what is kind of evident from this list of 7 points maintained in the, conveyed in the Skanda Purana. Okay, so what is the sort of Hindu achievement, therefore, which is moksha? How do we see moksha? So we can't talk about such a long discussion without talking about what moksha itself means, right? So in the moksha sthiti, the sequence of the circle of life slowly comes to a close. And this is from the Yoga Sutra, where there are sutras in the Kaivalya Pada, the fourth pada in the Yoga Sutra, which actually say that the krama, okay, corresponds to a series of kshana, which means a yogi in the jnana sthiti knows that everything in loka is linked to time. But as one approaches the moksha sthiti, this circle slows down significantly to such an extent that one is able to even discern kshana, which is movement of time from one moment to the other, till one reaches the stage where one is beyond loka, and when one is sort of beyond loka, the movement stops. The whole cycle of time stops, and when one goes beyond loka, one when one attains alaukika sthiti, one is effectively attained moksha. So ultimate kaivalya is when the guna, devoid of any purpose, return for the purusha, return to their mula prakriti stage. So guna depart, yeah, and one becomes nirguna. In other words, the power of chaitanya becomes rested in one's own swarupa, one's own sachidananda swarupa. That's what the definition of moksha is: movement from loka to the alaukika sthiti. And what does one actually say when one reaches a moksha sthiti? So, such a jnani will say, my buddhi has vanished. As I said, buddhi is a product of prakriti, and buddhi goes away. All activities are melted by realizing the identity of Atma and Brahma. My Swarupa is Sachidananda. I am Purna. I am complete. Yeah, there is nothing that is incomplete within me. I am not the Karta. I am not the Bhokta. I am Avikara. I am beyond Kriya. Remember the very first video where I said all these words come automatically to one who has attained the Sachidananda Sthiti, and one should be able to write what Avikara means, what Bhokta means, Abhokta means in a detailed way to understand the sort of pregnant meaning of these words in a clearer way. I am Kevala, I am Sadashiva, I am Narayana, I am the destroyer of Tripura. Why? Because Tripura, three puras, is akin to three gunas. So when Tripura is destroyed, it means the Triguna is destroyed and one attains the Nirguna state. So it's all sort of falling in place quite easily when one understands moksha in the way I have sort of explained. Some of these sort of meanings become quite self-evident. I am the Purusha. I am Akhanda Bodha, which means I am there is no khanda or breaking in my sort of awareness of everything. I know everything. Yeah, I am the Sakshi of everything. I have no other Ishvara but myself, because Ishvara, as we say, as we stated earlier, is linked to Loka, whereas when one goes beyond Loka, then I am my own Ishvara, really speaking, because there is no other Ishvara. I am devoid of the ideas of Aham and Mama. All of them sort of depart completely. Okay, so this is what I wanted to very quickly convey in terms of understanding the various types of Hindus, how gunas play themselves out, and when one attains the highest state, which is the Paramatma Sthiti, which is the moksha, or as I had stated here, Apavarga Sthiti, then how does one view oneself, and what is stated on this slide is effectively conveying that. Okay, so we will pause again before we move on to another interesting topic.